Throughout Hollow Knight's development, a lot of things have changed. Broken Vessel used to be found in Green Path, False Knight was nothing but a great hopper, and many of the charms we know and love today weren't even planned to be in the game. Instead, we had charms like these that never ended up seeing the light of day. Today, we're exploring the remnants of Hollow Knight's lost charms. I'm Holland, and this is every cut charm in Hollow Knight rebalanced. Thanks to a Kickstarter update post, we know what a few of the cut charms were supposed to do before they were given the boot. Let's start with those. Number 1. Vengeful Swarm. Man, this charm looks awesome. According to Team Cherry, after you take damage, the charm would spawn angry hatchlings that attack nearby enemies. If I were going to rebalance the Vengeful Swarm, which is my MO at this point, I would probably change the condition under which the swarm is summoned, only because it's a little too similar to Thorns of Agony. Also, the charm needs a notch cost. Ferocious Swarm, 2 notches. The effect now triggers after an enemy is defeated. The name is altered to fit this change. So each time you defeat an enemy, you gain a temporary hatchling ally up to a maximum of 4 at a time. Number 2. Wall Reveal. Okay, so this most likely wasn't going to be the actual name of the charm, but at least it gives us a sense of what its effect might have been, revealing breakable walls in the environment. By the way, if you want to check out these charms yourself, I'll leave a link to the press kit where they can be found down below. So I think this charm looks really cool, whether intentional or not. It's got kind of like a spider vibe, which I love. As to the effect, I think this might be controversial, but I actually sorta like it. The only potential problem is that you might need to put this charm on just to run around scouring the map for secret locations, which potentially isn't that fun, but think about it. That's kind of what you're already forced to do if you don't want to cheat and look on the internet for a map. In that sense, I don't really see the problem. All the charm needs is a cost and a name. Weaver Sight, 1 notch. Breakable walls are outlined in a white glow. Number 3. Soat Charm. Lastly in this category we have the Soat Charm. To be honest, I wouldn't even treat this like a proper scrapped charm, given just how little this concept looks to have been developed. So far as I know, all we have on the Soat Charm is this Reddit comment, apparently belonging to William Pellin of Team Cherry. He writes, "I actually wanted to make a Soat Charm that would make you die in 1 hit or something. Since we don't have any artwork and the idea honestly seems a bit flippant, I won't bother rebalancing the Soat Charm. I just have to include it here to make sure you get the full coverage of every scrapped charm that we know of." Moving on. Now we're entering into more speculative territory, and be sure to stick around to the end because some of the charms I'll be talking about are so hidden that I actually haven't seen anyone discuss them yet. Exciting. Before we get to that, however, I'm thrilled to announce that I'll be uploading a Hollow Knight video every single day for 7 days straight in anticipation of Silksong. So if you're a true Hollow Knight enthusiast, you should definitely consider subscribing right now to keep in the loop. I've worked really hard on these videos and I'm especially excited to show you the final one. Thank you so much. Next up, we have a few designs that look like early versions of currently existing charms. This one I really like, even though it's kind of just a differently textured version of Unbreakable Heart. Something about those glowing eyes just looks awesome. Reminiscent of one of our custom charms actually, the Titan Shell. Here's yet another pre-release version of that texture, looking closer to the Unbreakable Heart we know today, just a little less colorful. In fact, quite a few of these charms appear to be older, dimmer versions of charms we know today. We'll talk about why that might be a bit later on. For now, I won't be spending too much time on these recolors as I want to get to the exciting scrap charms, but here they are just quickly. An old Sprint Master known as Charm Sprite 04, there's an old Gathering Swarm, then we have Unending Greed Glass, which appears to be an earlier version of Fragile Greed. We even have a description from Team Cherry pretty much confirming this. Alright, those were all the boring ones out of the way, now for more original cut charms. This one, known as Charm Generic 01, looks almost like a royal symbol with the brass outline, a boulder shell looking interior, and a gemstone finish. It's also found in a washed out form. What could this bad boy have done? Well, here's my interpretation. Highborn's Crest. 2 notches. Increases nail damage by 20% while in the air. You know, because the highborn feel elevated above the rest of society? Huh? Damn, I'm good.
Now here's an interesting one. What does this charm remind you of? Right? It's totally the predecessor to Carefree Melody. That explains why the red mane looks so bushy. It used to be a bush. Or at least that's my interpretation of the original. It's possible that this charm used to have the same effect as Carefree Melody, perhaps themed around you dodging the attack. But I don't really like that, so I'd rather give the charm a new effect instead. Mark of Compliance. 3 notches. Non-boss enemies do not attack unless provoked. Not only does this effect make traversal less of a hurdle, it could also be used against bosses like Lost Kin and Fluke Marm to avoid getting attacked by the ants that spawn throughout the fight. Now here's a charm which I'm almost certain 95% of you have never seen before. It's so obscure that I can't even find a proper picture of it. Look closely at this image. Do you see it? The odd one out? That's the one. Man, this charm looks awesome, and I would bet you it has something to do with Geo Collection, perhaps an earlier version of Fragile Greed. But let's not assume that, because that means we can give it a custom ability. I've got a bit of a crazy idea, hold on. Gorgeous Touch, you know, like Gorgeous Husk. Anyway, 3 notches, hitting an enemy, casting a spell, losing a mask, or breaking a destructible object awards a small amount of Geo. And combining it with Greed would give you even more Geo. Geo galore. We're still not quite done talking about secret charms, so stay tuned. However, I want to first go over something perhaps even more interesting than scrapped charms. Scrapped effects for vanilla charms. That's right, some of the charms we know today might have used to do completely different things. I've picked out some of the more interesting examples that I could find, so get ready because there are quite a few. Most of these come from the aforementioned press kit and are inferences based on file names. Thorns of Agony used to be called Charm Thorn Counter before it was given a proper name. Soul Catcher was known as Charm Mohr Soul, while Soul Eater was called Charm Soul Up Large. This seems to imply that Soul Catcher was developed before Soul Eater was even considered as a charm. There's also a texture known as Glass Charm Shattered UI, which is just the shattered overlay of a broken charm. This allows you to create your own fragile charms. Strength was known as Charm Glass Attack Up Full. Whew, what a mouthful. The full seems to indicate the version of the charm that was neither fragile nor broken, implying that unbreakable charms might have been in development quite early. Heart was known as Charm Glass Heal Full, which makes you wonder whether heal refers to the extra health it provides today or a completely separate healing effect. Hive Blood was known simply as Charm Hive, making it seem like the need for a hive-based charm came before the actual effect was determined. Spell Twister was known as Charm Magic Cost Down. I find that interesting given that it might be the only official reference to soul or spells as magic. Sharp Shadow was known as Charm Shade Impact. The impact descriptor is a bit vague, but it might have just meant impact damage. Boulder Shell was known as Charm Blocker. Maybe that simply refers to what it does today, or maybe it used to have a different blocker mechanic. Another screenshot shows the scrap name Propede Shell. Kinda weird. Spores Room was known as Charm Fungus. Did the texture come first, then the effect? Okay, now for the really interesting file names. Listen to this. Longnail is called Charm Greed in the press kit. What? Is that really an error in the official press kit, or did this used to be Greed? Heavy Blow was known as Charm Nail Damage Up, indicating that it might have had a similar effect to that of Strength. That would help explain why Heavy Blow's current effect feels so out of place. Dashmaster is known as Charm Generic 03. If Dashmaster was considered generic at the time, then every generic charm might have already had a unique effect that we just don't know about. Quick Focus is known as Charm Fast Focus, which makes sense, but Deep Focus is known only as Charm Crystal. Was it originally supposed to do something other than buff your focus ability? Perhaps it was meant to interact with the Crystal Dash instead. It's also very interesting that those charms, whose effects were altered before release, like Heavy Blow and Deep Focus, ended up being among the least useful charms in the final game. Perhaps because their effects had to be changed last minute, and as such, they couldn't be play tested properly. That might just be whack inference though. For another pair of strange charms, we have Grubberfly's Elegy, which was known as Charm Grub Blade. A bit of a strange descriptor, but oh well. However, Grub Song was known as, get this, Charm Grub Mid. Mid? What is that supposed to mean? Maybe just that it's not the last grub-related charm you'll find? But mid, as in middle, implies an after and a before. Did there used to be a third grub charm? We may never know. Another very strange one, Dreamwielder, was known as Inv Dream Charm. What? What does that mean? Invulnerable Dream Charm? Invisible? Invincible? Invalid? I honestly have no idea. And finally, before we get back to talking about cut charms, I noticed a very interesting detail in one of the pre-release screenshots. Take a look. If the notch cost shown here isn't bugged, it means one of two things. Either Wayward Compass used to be free of charge, or Stalwart Shell used to cost only one notch. But that's not entirely true actually, because in the thread that follows this image, Team Cherry writes the following about the Wayward Compass. Shows your position on the map, useful for finding your way, but is the cost worth it? So that says to me that Wayward Compass wasn't free, which means Stalwart Shell used to cost only one notch. Incredible. What's so interesting about that to me is the idea that Team Cherry started the charm off at one notch and then later found it appropriate to nerf it to 2 notches. I really wonder how that happened. I actually have another one. I love these, they're kind of like puzzles. So here we have Thorns of Agony, Fury of the Fallen, and Heavy Blow, which should total 5 notches. But instead, they go up to 6. Where's the extra notch coming from? Well, given what we learned earlier about Heavy Blow potentially being the original version of Strength, I would venture to guess that Heavy Blow used to have the same cost as Strength, 3 notches. That would explain what we see in the picture, but I can't say for sure. Okay, I swear this is the last one. Only 5 notches for all 3 of these charms. Damn. If we consider that Stalwart Shell most likely used to cost only 1 notch, and assume the same is true for Gathering Swarm, that means Hiveblood used to cost only 3 notches. Just like in my charm reworking series. Man, that's awesome. Too bad they changed it. Finally, I'll touch on a few miscellaneous points which you should know about if you'd like to consider yourself an expert on cut Hollow Knight charms. First, we have 2 additional charm designs which do not appear in the final game. The leftmost is known as Charm Generic 02 and has 2 almost identical versions. The rightmost we know absolutely nothing about so far as I've been able to gather. The thing is, these charms almost look like placeholders, and given the title of generic, one could easily imagine they were, but I don't think so. If we look back at that Dashmaster texture, which was also labeled generic, it's clear to see just how boring a charm can look without color. I have no idea what these charms used to do, but I think there might actually be an answer to that question. Looking at how many charms are found in this dull, colorless state, it's interesting to consider why that is so. Why did these charms all used to look so uniform? I can't tell you for sure because I don't know, but I have a theory. I think Team Cherry might have previously been aiming for a more realistic charm design across the whole roster. For each of the charms to actually look like charms, tiny metal crests that go on your belt or lapel. But at some point, perhaps, it was determined that without color, the charms either looked too boring or were hard to tell apart. And so many of them were soon given color, leaving only a few like Shaman Stone, Stalwart Shell, and Fury of the Fallen with some resemblance of the original brass aesthetic. I'd love to hear what you think about that theory. And finally, in the lead up to the Godmaster expansion, Team Cherry announced that glorified charms would be coming to the game. Only one line officially pertains to this scrapped concept. Glorified charms. Prove yourself and uncover a whole new depth to your charm collection. Apparently, the feature might have been scrapped due to the significant amount of work involved.
I imagine glorified charms would have been sort of like the unbreakable system we have today, a way to upgrade your charms into stronger versions. But while that sounds pretty cool, I'm not sure how I would feel about that sort of power creep. Although you have to admit, it's at least an interesting idea. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this comprehensive exploration of Hollow Knight's cut charm content. Before you click off this video, remember to subscribe so you don't miss the exciting Hollow Knight videos I have planned for the next 6 days. If you know of any cut charms that I missed, please let me know down below. And with that, I'm Holland, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.